Hey everyone, in this episode of Project Civic Si, I'll be tackling one of the last pieces of the power adding puzzle and installing this Skunk2 cold air intake onto my FA5. So in the past few episodes, we've knocked out a few basic bolt-on upgrades, like the installation of Honda's Flash Pro, which is a great tuning solution for these cars, as well as the installation of a Skunk2 long tube header and a full 3-inch exhaust from Full Race. But the last real piece of the puzzle with these basic bolt-on modifications is definitely the installation of a cold air intake. Because as I've mentioned in previous videos, the 8th Gen Civic is one of the few platforms that, thanks to the naturally aspirated K20 engine, actually does respond well to basic bolt-on upgrades. And so the intake is one of the last big, easy-ish pieces to tackle here. Pulling a bumper off to install a cold air intake is not that uncommon. However, as you can see, the Civic's engine bay is very, very packed tight. There's not a ton of room here to install a big, long tube intake like that. So unsurprisingly, there's a lot more removal to do before we can install that big old intake. It took about 15 minutes, but I've done a basic teardown on the engine bay to at least give us a bit more access. The battery's out of the way, as well as the entire stock intake system. You can see my nice Acuity Instruments shift bushings in there. Very nice. Video on that in the future. Let's take a look at the stock air box over here. So it comes out in a bunch of different pieces, most of which are independently serviceable. You can tell that Honda clearly had to engineer this intake system around the confines of the engine bay. It's obviously not like an optimal performance setup. You can tell by all the different flexi pipes and bends they had to use. And amusingly, I forgot that many years ago, I tried to like Swiss cheese the stock airbox to hopefully get a bit more noise out of it. It didn't do anything, but I thought that was funny when I pulled the bumper off and remembered I did that. Next on the agenda is removing the battery tray, which is bolted onto the left side frame rail, followed by removing the ECU and the ECU mounting bracket and the fuse box. All of these things are relocated by the Skunk2 intake installation kit. Now, unfortunately, I made the mistake of buying this intake setup used, and the guy I bought it off of was not entirely forthright with me when he said it's complete and not missing any parts. And after I came home and realized the kit was missing parts, because as you discern, this intake setup was very elaborate and requires moving a lot of pieces around, he promptly blocked me and stopped responding. So I was left on my own to kind of figure out what pieces I was missing from the kit and try and source replacements. One of the biggest annoyances was actually this, because as you can tell, the stock upper radiator hose actually travels directly in front of the throttle body and severely compromises what sort of intake setup will even fit in this bay. So Skunk2 actually redesigned the upper radiator hose with this downturn here to clear their larger air intake. But sourcing this was a complete pain in the ass. Fortunately, I found a dismantler in Florida on eBay who was selling just this for 15 bucks, and that got that sorted. But as you'll see later in the video, there's more stuff where I had to get a little bit creative. There are two small brackets that come with the Skunk2 intake that are a little bit confusing as to where they go, so I figured I'd show you. The first one is for the fuse box and replaces the front position mounting bracket. It goes right here. It's the L-shaped bracket with the bend up. That matches up with the 3 latches on the fuse box assembly. The second one is down here and relocates the radiator overflow tank down here. Pull that up, and you'll see that's where the second bracket, sorry if it's dark, bolts onto the frame rail. Now, interestingly, they chose a ground location. This guy right here, sorry again, it's really dark, but you'll see when you look at the left side frame rail, look down, there's a big ground right here, a bunch of wires coming out of it. Interestingly, Skunk2 has chosen to powder coat this black, so I'm not sure how good of a ground this now functions as, but basically this bracket goes between the frame rail, the ground, and the bolt. You have to flip the ground 180 degrees to make it all fit. That's where that goes.
So I've wrapped up the intake installation on driving the car for the first time. Installing the intake is a royal pain in the ass. There's just no way around it. And the engine bay in this car is so tiny, the intake is so big, to relocate all those parts. And you add in the fact that I was stupid and bought this used, and the guy who I bought it off of completely screwed me on all manner of parts in this kit, means that installing this intake took almost 6 hours in all. This is actually day 2, because I ran out of daylight the first day. Definitely buy this kit brand new from Skunk2 if this is the route you want to go, because there's so many little pieces and things you don't think about that until it's time to install it and you realize, oh shit, I don't have this or I don't have that. So this guy royally screwed me and made this installation much more difficult. Like, I didn't have any of the vacuum hoses required for this kit, which meant going to the auto parts store, figuring out what size vacuum hose to get, cutting it to size, and kind of messing around with that until I kind of got that setup all sorted out. Initial impressions, well, let's go with fitment. Out of the box, I'd say the Skunk2 intake has solid 8.5 to 9 out of 10 fitment. Now, the reason why I don't give it a 10 is because a few of the pieces, like the ECU relocation bracket, just don't quite line up perfectly right. This seems to be a common thing with aftermarket Civic parts where the fitment just isn't quite right for whatever reason. None of the holes quite line up perfectly, so it requires a bit of muscling and things like that. Slightly annoying, but completely workable. Let's go to driving impressions. So this car has a Skunk2 Alpha header and a 3-inch exhaust, and now the Skunk2 intake along with Honda Flash Pro. Right now I just have it on the Stock Plus Honda map, which is obviously the wrong map for this big 3.5-inch intake. So no doubt it is not optimal for performance by any stretch of the measure. That's coming in a future video, I assure you. But just driving around town, you can't really tell much of a difference. I'm kind of surprised I thought it'd be much louder than the stock box, which is very restrictive by design in order to fit in a tight cavity. I can't tell much of a difference, so I'm honest with you. All I hear is the racket from the Skunk2 header, which rubs against the chassis and makes just a lot of volume in general. A little disappointing because, generally speaking, naturally aspirated 4-cylinders tend to have really nice induction notes for whatever reason, but this, I can't really tell much of a difference. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Alright, so I figured out the trick here at the Skunk2 intake. The trick is to clearly roll your windows down. Listen to this. There's the induction noise. Kicks in, holy shit, listen to this. All right, 2,000 RPM. Oh my god! Woohoo! Oh my god! Wow! With the windows down, that's unbelievable! I guess that's the trick. If you're not balls deep in VTEC, you're not going to hear or notice a difference. But once you're in VTEC, holy shit, it sounds so good. Woo! Okay, so immersively, 6 hours of hard back-breaking work was worth it because I can finally hear all the glorious intake noise that my naturally aspirated screaming Honda should make. Woo! And I think it's a great place to end this episode of Project Civic Si. If you have any questions about the Skunk2 intake, please drop a comment down below. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next episode where we wrap up the final piece of the powertrain puzzle. 3 guesses what that is. Alright guys, my name is Jay. Keep watching Drive, Brake,